Welcome to the Timescales Interviews. I'm Grego, your host, and today I have a very special guest, singer, songwriter, author, and more. This right here is none other than Kyle Gray Young. Hi, Kyle. How are you today?
I'm great, Greg. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, yeah, and thanks for being willing to do a little Zoom interview like this. You're right here in the U.S., right?
Yep, I'm in sunny Minnesota. It actually is a little sunny today, which is why I had to close the blinds, but
Sunny Minnesota. I know somebody in Minnesota, and that's actually how I ran across you. None other than the American Treasure Gaelynn Lea.
yeah.
That's how we met on a Zoom chat with Galen, and I used to get Minnesota confused with Michigan. For some reason, I get those two confused. I guess it's an M thing.
It's gotta be. Yeah, and they're just, Midwest. So I
Right.
don't
So,
blame you.
so well, thank you. So this is the third time that we've met. I first ran across you on a Zoom social with Galen and some other wonderful people, and I was listening to what you were saying and thinking, wow, this is a really interesting musician. And as you know now, I've been doing this interview series to study the shared traits of success for people in arts and performing arts. And you fit right in absolutely, as you are in some areas of arts unlike any that I've ever talked to somebody with. One of them being the creation of sheet music. And then, of course, you're the author of a book that I absolutely loved on Horace Weston, which we're going to cover. Um, but normally, when I do an interview, I will end it with socials and where you like to be found online. But I think in this situation, it would be good to reverse and let watchers and listeners know right up front where you can be found, because I think that that would enhance the educational value of this. And
Sure.
what I'm going to suggest would be for people to go to bio.link/Kyle. That's bio.link/KYLE. And I think that that's a good launch pad for people to get to know you and see the breadth of your works. Would you say that that is probably a preferred place for people to start?
It's an easy place. Yeah, it has links to all kinds of different things, whether you want to listen to my music that I've recorded or sign up for lessons that I teach or purchase sheet music that I've made. There's probably and then my Substack that I think that you've seen too, the new blog that I started. So any little new activity, I usually put it on there. So I'll update it with the new Horace Weston book soon.
Okay, great. Now I read that this morning. Behind the Frets, 40 songs that made me, and this is on your new Substack.
Mm.
It's a very interesting article, and it really goes into a lot of depth of your past in the appreciation of music, um, including the Monkees.
Mhm.
And I think that if we were to discuss just that simple blog, um, we'd be here for quite a while just on that topic. So,
Yeah, for sure.
is there anything about that blog that you'd like to tell us?
Yeah, so the 40 songs that made me, it's because last month, well, I should say the date, it's on January 9th, I turned 40. And so
And happy belated happy birthday.
thank you, thank you. And so I made a playlist and I've done this on several birthdays recently, where make a Spotify playlist with, all my favorite songs, and I send the link out to my friends, and maybe they listen to it, maybe they, comment on a certain song or whatever. So this year I thought I'm going to make a playlist with 40 songs and I'm going to write about it this time. So I thought this would be a good time to start a new blog. And I wanted to make it something where you could kind of get to know me through the music I like, because there's never been anything more important in my life than music. And you brought up the Monkees, and the first song on the playlist is I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, which everything that I do goes back to that moment. I had the Monkees sheet music books, and I had one that was for their third album, Headquarters. Now, that album didn't have I'm Not Your Stepping Stone on it, but this music book had some extra songs in it, and I still have it somewhere around here. And I was looking at that, and I saw the chord diagrams for the guitar chords, like where to press your fingers down. It was pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. And I have no idea how good or bad I sounded, but I figured out how to play guitar that way. And I also was studying sheet music at the same time, and I was probably about 5 years old throughout all that, and just messing around on my own. No one at home played anything. I just happened to have kind of an old guitar, and I don't even know that I had it tuned properly, but in my mind I was one of the Monkees, and I was playing Monkees music,
There
and
you
it sounded good to me, and that was good enough. And that was good enough to get me hooked. And so when I think of I'm Not Your Stepping Stone and those four chords, that was big. That was big for me. And I can still picture exactly how the sheet music looks. And that's how I try to tailor my sheet music. Just the same way it was easy to figure out, easy to understand, it enabled me to become a musician. So I have to give that back, because that was when I started getting into making sheet music. It was because I was finding a lot of really bad sheet music online, kind of ugly stuff that was hard to read, stuff that I couldn't use with my students because it required too much explanation, too much. It was just, very amateur work that's out there. And so I'm an amateur, but I've been running my sheet music shop for about 3 years now. And I really strive for that high quality, easy to read, easy to understand, because then that might enable someone to play music for the first time or for the millionth time. It doesn't matter. It's just helping people play music and learn something new.
Okay. So, when we previously met, we had a brief conversation about learning guitar, and I think I told you about how my guitar instructor, I would say around age 7 or 8, did not teach us a sheet music method. And it was something that was very unconventional. And um, it's my understanding that you started by reading sheet music. You started guitar by reading sheet music, which I'm assuming is probably one of the best ways aside from self-taught.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say that I was reading every note that was in a chord, because that's not really how that kind of music's notated. It's just a little box that has a grid that looks, it's like a picture of what the chord looks like on the guitar. And so that's what I was able to
Right.
read at that point. And then it was, I don't really know when, but I had a keyboard and I was learning the notes, and that's where I really learned how to read the treble clef, and that every good boy does fine, and all that stuff. That was on piano. I'm not sure when I applied that to guitar, but that's more like traditional sheet music reading rather than just chord names and recognizing chord shapes and those grids.
Okay. Okay, for folks watching and listening, we are talking about Kyle's Substack, and it is Behind the Frets, 40 Songs That Made Me. Now, we have just discussed one song in particular by the Monkees, so you've got 39 others to learn about right there, just on that Substack.
Yeah,
So, and it's a wonderful read. Do you want to go into your sheet music now? Because we do have screen sharing on, so this interview is going to be a little bit different than any that I've done before. And I would like you to maybe show your sheet music store. Um,
sure.
because I had not seen something like this before until you showed it to me. And then perhaps after that we can discuss the fact that you do online lessons.
Sure. So, do you want to see my storefront or
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
let
If you have
me
that up, let's take a look at that, please.
I guess I can start from my website. I'll just share this for now.
And for
And so this
listeners,
is
Kyle's website. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say the same thing. So this
Oh,
is my website, kylegrayyoung.com, which you can get this in my bio.link. You can even just do a Google search for Kyle Gray Young. It's hard to miss my stuff out there. But this is what you'll see on the front page of my website. And this kind of gives all the different things that I do. So I have my music on here, and I have a page for my lessons. I have a page for my banjo club, which is part of my sheet music shop, but you can just click on sheet music and it'll open up a new window over here, or a new tab. And this is the front page of my store on Gumroad. And like this is my new book that Greg was just talking about Horace Weston. So you can click on that. And this one is one that was grant funded, so it's free. That's part of my angle with my sheet music shop is that I would say 90% of my stuff is available for free. So you can just put a 0 in the price box and add to cart, and then you can buy it from there if you want, and you can download it for free or pay what you want. And donations are of course always appreciated. But these are the different items I have. I have several banjo books, ukulele books, and guitar books. And I also got started with my sheet music shop by arranging this Super Mario Brothers piece for a wind trio in the Twin Cities. And this was probably about 10 years ago that I arranged this, and it kind of got popular on YouTube. I think there's like over 100,000 views on it, maybe more. It's been a while
nice.
since I checked it, of the original performance of it. And so I kept getting emails. Where do I buy this? How do I buy this sheet music? And so I started a store, and it was just a little section of my old website. And then when the pandemic started, I had more time to work on some projects that I was thinking about, and then it just one thing led to another, and I started this banjo club in August of 2021, and every month everyone gets 10 free tunes in tablature. And tablature looks like this. So this is one of the things that I specialize in with my sheet music shop. It doesn't look like the traditional treble clef sheet music or piano sheet music. This is specific for banjo in this case, where it has the number for the fret. If it's 0, it's just an open string. And then the top line is for the highest first string, the one closest to the floor actually. And then the bottom line is for the 5th string. So it still follows the same rhythms that you see in standard notation, but this allows it kind of, I want to say it's like a fast track to playing. You don't have to learn all the specific notes on banjo, but you can start playing these tunes. Probably the first day you pick up a banjo, you could play something like this. And that's one of the things I specialize in, like I said. So in my banjo club, everyone gets 10 free tunes every month. And you can join with a donation if you want. And I'm just close, just shy of 500 members at this point. So I'm really super proud of this. It's a lot of fun. I make a new cover for it's like a magazine everyone gets every month, but it's digital. And I have my cat and rabbit on it every month. And it's just a lot of fun to make a new cover and find new tunes each month. So next month in March, we're going to be celebrating Women's History Month. So I'll be including the first banjo composition ever by a woman, and that's from 1888. And you'll be able to read more about that on my Substack. I haven't published the article yet, but probably by the time this airs, I would imagine that'll be up. So it'll be a lot of fun to dive into that part of banjo history.
Okay, wow, I like that. I like this format, and it sounds like you're having fun doing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you were telling me, the love of music, the love of the art. You have to do it. No one's. I don't think anyone does this for the money. And it's, and I've met some amazing people through this, specifically the Banjo Club. Just some really, really interesting people from all over the world. I've got several members in the United States, of course, but people in France. Morocco is a interesting place, I think. I never really heard from anyone from Morocco before. All over Europe, and just heard from someone from Japan who got the Horace Weston book. Almost every day I hear from someone new, and that found something somehow. So it's really nice.
Wow, that sounds really cool. Now, for people that are watching this here on the YouTube video version, go down to the description below, and you can click on the link to go directly to Kyle's website here. For people that are listening in on audio, Kyle Gray Young's website is super easy. It is kylegrayyoung.com, and that is spelled KYLEGRAYYOUNG.com. Now, I see the next entry here, next to the Banjo Club, The Life and Music of Horace Weston, champion banjoist of the world. And this is one that I myself went and purchased. Of course, as mentioned, you can obtain these for free, or you can donate down there in the Name a Fair Price box. Now, this right here, I found absolutely fascinating because I had never heard of Horace Weston. And there had been a time when I was doing a public radio program where there was a training period where this particular station had a policy of new DJs working with experienced DJs on their shows before they were given their own show. And the DJ that I was placed with was doing a live show on banjo music and bluegrass. And I did not know at the time that Steve Martin is also a banjoist. So I got thrown into the world of banjo and bluegrass live on the air, not knowing much at all about it. And then we ended up talking to Steve Martin on the phone on the air, where I was shocked. I had no idea the DJ was going to do that. I didn't know it was even on the schedule. And I said, "Whoa." I said, "What? Are you serious? We're going to talk to Steve Martin?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, what am I supposed to say?" And he said, "Just don't ask him about Saturday Night Live and you should be good." So I don't know what was up with that. But anyway, that got me interested in banjo and bluegrass, because when you are doing a radio broadcast with a bluegrass historian, which this fine gentleman DJ was and still is, you will gain an interest in banjo and bluegrass.
Hmm.
And Horace Weston was a name that I had not heard of. And after meeting you through Galen, through Zoom socials, um, I was immediately drawn to this book right here, and I absolutely loved it. And Kyle, I've got to tell you something. I think I told you this in text yesterday. Congratulations to you, because by you writing this book on Horace Weston, you have filled in an extremely valuable piece of American musical history. And I myself highly recommend this book. I don't write reviews and I don't typically rate books, but for this book and the subject matter, I give it a solid 10 of 10.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the kind words. Wow, what can I say? Yeah, it's interesting to hear Horace's name spoken in the same context as bluegrass, because he never heard bluegrass. Bluegrass
Mhm.
is relatively new. I use quotes, compared to the kind of banjo music that I typically deal with. And to kind of like, so bluegrass, it came about in like the 40s. Bill Monroe and specifically Earl Scruggs, which Earl Scruggs has a banjo style named after him, Scruggs style, and it's 3 finger, and that's the bluegrass style, and that's what maybe I would say most people play that. And then there's also another style called clawhammer, and so clawhammer has its roots in. Let me go back to my storefront here for a second, because a project that I did a couple years ago was the Briggs Banjo Instructor. So this is from 1855, and this is the world's first banjo tutor. This is the first one ever printed that says this is how you play banjo. Here are the notes, here's the style, and here are the songs. And so all of these songs were collected on plantations in the South, and because the banjo has African origins, and it's more specifically African American origins, because while there are many instruments in Africa that resemble the banjo as we know it today with the short fifth string definitely was like all these different West African cultures coming together because of slavery. And then by the mid 1800s, the most popular form of entertainment in the United States was blackface minstrel shows, where white people and black people would put burnt cork on their face, make horrible racist jokes and actions, and mimic what they thought people were doing during the celebrations and the dances that they saw black people doing on the plantations. So, anyways, this book was originally compiled in, published in 1855, and this was the first project I did. And then after this, there's hardly anything that has to do with African American involvement with banjo music. And that's when I found Horace Weston, because what's he doing? Why he's not playing music in the same style that was from 1855. He got popular in the 1870s, and he started playing. He was known for stroke style, which is what was played in the Briggs book, but all of his music is for finger style, which resembles a lot of the bluegrass styles that came decades later. I think that he was among several types of banjo players in the 1880s that if Earl Scruggs wasn't playing that stuff, I would be surprised. I think it's like proto bluegrass if I were to, go out on a limb with that. But it's really interesting. And so my initial research found that he was the first African American to be credited for his compositions. Whereas in the Briggs book, a white banjo player named Tom Briggs collected all this music and never collected any names, at least didn't print them when they published his book. So we don't know the names of those original musicians that helped to really capture that initial banjo culture. But this is Horace was the first African American to have his work published, and he was always called the champion banjoist of the world. He even signed his letters like that. There was one letter that I think really cracks me up where he's writing to S.S. Stewart, who published all of his music. And S.S. Stewart was a great banjo maker in the 1880s and 90s. But he was writing to him, and he signed it, Horace Weston, champion banjoist of the entire world. I just love that he added entire.
There
he wanted it to be clear. But yeah, so many fascinating things about him. With the banjo being
Nice.
an African American instrument, hardly anyone outside of America had heard this instrument. So he was the first, at least the first professional performer to perform in England in I believe it was 1868. It's hard to remember. It's been a couple months since I read my own book. So
Right, right. Yeah, it's been a few weeks since I read it. I believe that Mr. Weston lived until the year 1890,
yep,
and
he died in 1890.
okay, and he joined the U.S. military. I believe
Mm-hmm.
he first volunteered for the Army, and at that time, they were not recruiting black people.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went into the Navy and performed banjo for the other American soldiers,
Yep.
and then went over to Connecticut and Boston, and I believe when he passed in 1890, he was in New York City,
Mm.
and I think it would be very interesting to been able to have seen the world through his eyes, because you have obviously done your research, and I believe that if Horace Weston uh, were able to read what you have compiled and documented, that he would be extremely pleased with it. And I think that for people um, interested in music, that may not heard of Horace Weston, I believe this here may very well be the paramount work, right here by author Kyle Gray Young. So, Kyle, this is an absolutely wonderful work, and it's just a small part of your multiple talents. What was the technology available then? So you used a
Yeah.
cassette tape recorder.
I used a 4-track cassette recorder, so I could record guitar on track one, and then another instrument on track two, another instrument on track three, another instrument on track four, and then mix them all in different spots and with the faders. I mean, it was a real mixing and recording console, but it was small and something I could afford with saving up for a while. I recorded on cassette tapes, and then you'd have to record it onto another cassette tape to play it on other tape players.
Really, how does that work? You would have to record it on. Oh, okay. So you would have to record it on a different type format tape.
Well, it's still the same kind of tape. So I was so fascinated with this when I got it, and I'm still fascinated because if you think about a cassette tape, you put it in, you hear a stereo signal. You hear left and right, just like you would when you play a record, play a CD, stream on Spotify, whatever. So then you flip the tape over and you've got two more tracks, left and right. So with the 4-track cassette recorder, you just put the tape in and it uses all four tracks, left and right from side A and left and right from side B. So that's tracks one, two, three, and four. So then you have to mix that down to a regular tape recorder that only has left and right. And that's still how we record. We record multi-tracks, and we still always have to mix it down to something stereo for the public to hear.
Okay. Now, let's say somebody watching or listening to this has always wanted to become a guitarist, for example, and they are interested in this interview because they have a desire to learn and play the guitar. Um, I think one of the very basic starting points would be selecting an instrument and how much does it cost. And my first guitar, my parents purchased it out of the Sears and Roebuck catalog,
Mhm.
and it wasn't very expensive. I still have it, and it still sounds good. But I don't believe that when they sent me to music school, um, that we were making a sizable investment in the instrument right at the beginning,
Mhm.
because there may have been the question, would I be interested in it? Now, um, I recently saw a YouTube video, which you and I briefly discussed before we started recording, and I don't remember the exact dollar amounts, but it was something like this: a $200 and under guitar, a $2,000 guitar, and a $20,000 guitar, and then a $2 million guitar, were used by some musicians that were evaluating the quality difference between such a massive range of expenditures for these instruments. And what I'm wondering, if someone wanted to come to you for an online course and be taught guitar through your sheet music by you, what would they have to initially spend on an instrument?
I require at least the $2 million guitar for my students.
Okay. No,
Um,
2 million, no less.
I can't even imagine what would make a guitar worth that much, to be honest. But
They couldn't figure it out either.
yeah. Well, so with guitar, there are so many cheap guitars out there. And when I first started teaching, just over 10 years ago, I was teaching classes at like community ed or park district things or after school programs, and I would get some students that would come with these toys that they got from Walmart, and it was like 25 bucks for this, and it was so that's don't only spend 25. I think you have to spend about $100 to get something that's gonna be good, because you want to be able to tune it and you want it to be able to stay in tune. Those are, I think, the most important things. Those two things, plus is it easy to press the strings down? Because especially with younger fingers, it can really hurt. Even older fingers, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It can really hurt. So the harder it is to press down the strings, the more you probably won't practice. So so about $100. I think if you can spend closer to 200, then you're gonna get something that'll last you a few years if you keep it in, if you treat it right. And banjos are probably about the
Okay.
same. I would probably say like if you spend $100 on a banjo, you might be able to find like a used one in that range at a pawn shop or something like that. But for new, you're probably going to want to spend closer to 200.
Around 200. Okay, now that's interesting. I totally forgot about the pain. And there is a song that has lyrics, something like I played until my fingers bled. Well, I actually remember having that happen to
Oh yeah,
where
me
my
too.
fingers were cut by the
Hmm.
strings and
Hmm.
bleeding. And I don't recall which instrument that was, but it did kind of turn me off from from wanting to play it.
Hmm.
So are you saying that if somebody goes beyond a $25 toy level guitar and makes the jump up to a $200 guitar, is the $200 guitar something that's going to be more comfortable and perhaps painless to play?
I can't say painless. Now, I
Okay,
can promise you
can't
this.
guarantee that.
If you practice every day, I'm going to give it 2 or 3 weeks before that pain is so tolerable, you'll get to the point where you're never going to think about it again. So,
Okay, and I
um,
think that's due to calluses.
yep.
Wouldn't you kind of build up? Yeah, exactly.
Mm,
So, okay, so all right, so we've got the $200 guitar. We know that there might actually be a little bit of physical pain involved at the beginning.
mhm,
That's acceptable because we want to learn how to play guitar because we got a favorite song that we've got to do a cover of. Okay.
mhm.
Now, having the instrument, we can come to you and you can teach us online. How does that work?
Just the same way you and I are having a conversation right now. If you went and got your guitar,
Okay.
I could grab mine and we would just, I sit here. This is exactly where I teach. This is where I do pretty much all my work. And it's the only thing, because I started out teaching in person, and the only thing we can't do is play at the same time. And at first, when I made the transition to teaching online, I originally lived in the Chicago area and moved out here about 5 or 6 years ago. And a few of my students continued with me online when I moved here. And then when the pandemic started, everyone moved online. And well, I wish everyone would have moved online, but some people just quit, of course. But so it's like I said, the only thing is we can't play at the same time. And at first, that seemed like a barrier, but it actually made all of my students better because they were forced to hear themselves more. They could never hide
Oh,
behind anything I was playing. And then I could hear them better too, because then I wasn't distracted by anything I was playing. I was focused. I'm able to focus on my students playing much more, much easier now. So as far as how it works, I mean, I showed you the screen sharing. I can put up different lesson plans on the screen so I can easily point to things just the same way we would point to something on a music stand that we're sharing in person. Um, it's usually, I mean, all my lessons are very relaxed, very, low key, and um, parents rave about how convenient it is because they don't have to drive their kid anywhere. And I
Nice,
think
nice.
adults kind of agree with that too, because it's just one less place to drive. And um,
Hmm.
so, yeah. And I
Well,
have
you know,
banjo, I have guitar students, ukulele. I have one baritone ukulele student still. And piano, I teach piano online, and also just songwriting and arranging and composition, things like that. So,
okay. The pandemic did have a couple of silver linings, few and far
yeah,
between, but one of them was forcing people to quit breathing the same air, which means get on a computer just like you and I are doing. And
yeah,
with your courses, somebody doesn't have to be in Minnesota, not Michigan, and somebody doesn't have to be in Minnesota. They can be in California, uh, Puerto Rico, or Japan for all that matters, right?
yeah. They could even be in Michigan. So, yeah, I've
Yeah,
got
or even and in Michigan.
it's just the hardest thing is scheduling with time zones, but it's never really been an issue because I had
Right.
a student in Utah and then she moved to Florida. So, the time zone went from one direction to the other for us with scheduling, but it's never an issue.
Right.
And
Okay.
I've taught a couple like one-off lessons with people in New York and California and even Finland.
Well, okay. Now, you mentioned piano, and piano is an absolute love and hate relationship for me. And it could be because I was not taught properly, and I was never able to get past playing with both hands at the same time. It may be something with my brain. My brain may not actually work that way. I also can't use binoculars for some reason, but I've had this stopping point with the piano where I can create something which if I practice it enough, eventually I'll like it. But there's that massive hurdle where I cannot play with two hands. Um, do you think that by using an online course that you would actually be able to get somebody like me past that point?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because chances
Really?
are you're trying to do something that's beyond your skill level, and you need to learn something
Okay.
that's more appropriate to your skill level for balancing your hands. And so, yeah, without a doubt, you're just whatever you're trying to do that requires hand independence. It's just a notch or two past where you should be playing, and that's all
Just,
anything is. When people say
just a
something's
notch.
hard, well, yeah, I mean, it's
Right.
hard to say how much a notch is on a scale like that,
Right.
but generally when people say, this is a hard song, this is too hard, or I can't play this, it just means it's just a notch past your difficulty level. And it's really hard for people to admit, I need to get better, I need to practice. And so one of the things with my students is I say, you know to be a good musician is to know that oh, I lost my train of thought, I might have to edit this. To
Okay.
recognize your mistakes and know how to learn from your mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. It was John Mayer, I heard, who said that music's not an extreme sport, and guitar playing specifically is not an extreme sport. So he's very experimental. He's always trying something new because why not see what that sounds like? Okay, it sounded bad, but maybe the next one won't sound so bad. It'll just, you're not gonna accidentally forget to pull your parachute open because we're not skydiving. It's not an extreme sport. So I went on a tangent. Sorry, Greg.
Well, you've got me about ready to go off on a completely different direction by talking about John Mayer. That you talk about a talent. I actually got to see him performing live. He was standing right in front of me at an Eric Clapton Crossroads Guitar Festival. But
Cool.
anyway, you say a notch. To me, it seems like an insurpassable mountain. It's something where I will admit, at some point I gave up. and I quit playing the piano. And that's something that is really something I am not proud of, because I really believe that I could get good at the piano, but the two hand thing, I just I it seems like a wall to me that I haven't
Hmm.
been able to get past, and it's frustrating. So I could actually take this laptop up to our piano, set it on the piano, and you would be able to show me a way to progress from what I've learned in an easier manner to eventually be able to get past that hurdle.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I'm not,
Yeah, okay, I would.
I'm not, I never took piano lessons. In fact, I never took guitar lessons. I took tenor sax lessons when I was in fifth grade because I think I was required to be in band.
Hmm.
So I never went through that process of learning piano properly. And so now that I'm teaching that process, because I actually over here these they're called piano adventures, and we just with one of my students, I think she's 7, we just started this book, which is level 1, but it's the second book in the series, and they're wonderful. And the reason I think that it would work for you, because there's actually like an older beginner version. It's like these books, but for grown-ups. They just have fewer cute pictures drawn in them, to be honest.
That
It's
sounds
the
like
same
me.
content.
I'm an older beginner.
Yeah, I
That
have that
sounds
book on the
perfect for
shelf
me.
behind me, and they're wonderful books because it brings you back to how to do it at a very basic level. Because like with my 7-year-old student, she started, I think we started just at the end of summer, so maybe August or September. And in the very first book, there are exercises where you're playing both hands at the same time and doing different things, but it kind of feels like the same thing. So if you think about using your thumbs are finger one. So 1, 2, 3, you're going in opposite directions, right? But
Hmm.
so when you start it that early in your learning, it's really hard to not do it, and it makes it harder to get to the point where you're at, where you're frustrated trying to do it. And
Hmm.
but so once you just back up, I think anyone has the ability to just back up to just a notch before that and just start from scratch. Act like you've never played piano. Just start from the very beginning of that book. You don't even need me. I mean, I would love to have some new students sign up, but you
Oh,
can do
no, no,
it
no. I
yourself too,
definitely need help.
Well, there
No,
is something to be said
trust me,
about accountability, to be checked in with,
right,
once a week. I think that
right.
goes a long way too.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now, you know, you have such a broad range of talents. Uh, I think I want to try the piano thing seriously, because there is there's a public piano player, Brett Kavanaugh, who plays boogie woogie on
Hmm.
YouTube, and he recently had something go viral, which is absolutely crazy. In fact, I need to send you the link to that, because you
Yeah,
you
please do.
will laugh. Yeah, but he plays public piano, and he has started live streaming, and he captures reactions of people. In the past, he's dressed up like as a janitor. I don't know if that's what they call him. He's in England, and he dressed up as just a mall worker. Okay, and he went and sat down and hit a couple of keys, and then just jammed into some boogie woogie, which was so crazy. And everybody, they had to stop and look. I mean, people were standing there with their mouths open, like what in the world? And it has a shock value, but it's also really funny, and it's really entertaining. And who wouldn't want to do something like that? Go sit down at a public piano, and then just all of a sudden create some joy in in
Yeah.
in the area. So if there's anybody like me that thinks you can't play piano, well, you know what? Apparently, we've found somebody that can help us. So, Kyle, if I can you show us, where do we go to your site to sign up for piano lessons? Do you
Sure.
still have the screen sharing on?
Yeah,
Uh,
let me pull this back up. So on my website, there's really no, it's just me. So I don't have like a fancy like sign up form or anything. But if you go just
okay.
kylegrayyoung.com, just click on lessons, and it's basically just an overview of what I offer, um,
Hmm.
and then links to method books that I use. So
Yep.
guitar, bass, ukulele, baritone ukulele. I need to add the piano books on here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
And
was
so
looking at the
it's
guitar books this morning.
basically if just email me and we can talk, and that's how you sign up.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, it's pretty
Cool.
simple. So
Okay, very nice and simple. Okay.
yeah.
Well, Kyle, I'll tell you what, this was really fun talking to you today, and thank you for being willing to do it because I don't recall meeting somebody before who is I would call you a music historian author, based on the book on Horace Weston. And in addition to that, you're a songwriter, singer, and an instructor. Uh, and it sounds like to me that you have a, shared trait with other people in arts and performing arts in that you love what you do. Am I correct about that?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. It's I and that's funny that I wouldn't have guessed that when I asked you earlier what everyone has in common.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, and as soon as you said it, it was like, well, duh, yeah. Like, I
Yeah,
didn't, I
who would
didn't.
think?
um, but yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's something that makes it. I don't want to say it's easy to teach, but it makes it easy to make others want it's easy to make others get excited about it too, because I think that's the hardest
Mhm.
thing about learning something new is if you aren't totally into this, you're probably not going to learn it as quickly. But if you're really into it, if that's your tunnel vision, because that's all I had was just tunnel vision. I saw the monkeys on TV when I was a kid, and it was like, that's it, that the records, the sheet music, all of it. So now, I think about, I make videos, they're on Instagram and YouTube, and I make sheet
Mhm.
music, and I make records. Like I kind of did those things that first got me when I was a kid. So you look for those things, whatever is inspiring you the most to learn this new thing, whether it's music or any kind of art form. Just dive into that as hard as you can, and it is just that's what I did. And there's this this rabbit hole that leads you down the banjo path, and then there's all this guitar stuff over here, and then I found ukulele somehow too. And but I can trace it all back to the monkeys, because Peter Tork of the Monkees was my he played banjo. I'm sure he was the first person I ever saw with a banjo on TV. And that was the coolest. And then Michael Nesmith with a guitar. That was also the coolest. And Mickey Dolenz playing drums. I had a drum set when I was a
Mhm.
kid too. I wanted to do it all. I even had maracas that looked like Davy Jones's maracas, because I really wanted to do it all. And so
Okay.
yeah, love of
Very well
music,
put.
love of everything relating to it, the history. Why did Michael Nesmith want to write songs? So then I looked into who were his influences, and it was blues. He loved Willie Dixon and Muddy Waters and Jimmy Rogers too. And so I got into that older stuff through that, finding out who their influences were. And then and I also, we didn't even talk about this, but I was a record dealer too. I sold used vinyl for about 10
Oh,
years, I
wow.
think. And I had an eBay store, and I did that before I started teaching. And so I have, a pretty extensive knowledge of recorded music history too. And that's something else that I just absolutely love. So everything you
Wonderful.
can think about
Okay.
with music, records, sheet music, playing it, writing it, listening to it. Yeah, all the above.
Well, that's a very good way of putting it. And you've made me think about music because I have been poking through your socials. You're everywhere on the internet. I was going to ask you in closing, where do you like to be found on socials? But we've pretty much already covered that. You're everywhere. And
I am, but I'm glad you asked because I think like it'll look like I'm everywhere, but you can just click one
mhm.
thing and it'll, share it to a bunch of places. But I'm most active on Instagram, or Facebook. So yeah, if you want to check out like Instagram is probably where I'll post a new video first if I'm gonna post something.
Okay. Okay. So for people watching and listening to this, thank Kyle for his time and his education today, and go and check him out on socials because there's a very good chance you will find something that you love. Uh, his website is Kyle Gray Young, KYLEGRAYYOUNG.com. And another place that I would suggest is going to bio.link/Kyle. That is bio.link/KYLE. And thank Kyle for his time and his education today. And folks, this right here has been Kyle Gray Young. Kyle, this is awesome to get to do this with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled. I've been, yeah, looking forward to this for the last couple months since we met, and yeah,
Oh, me
really
too.
happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Have a wonderful afternoon.
All right, you too. Thanks so much, Greg.